Hello and welcome to Card Shop Insiders, a podcast where we combine decades of experience from both sides of the counter to take you inside the business of local game stores and collectible gaming hobbies. I'm Noah and I play games, lots of them.
Hi, I'm John. Thank you for coming to visit us today on our podcast. Hopefully everything will go all right. They didn't start off well, that's for damn sure.
All right, well, with our combined perspectives, John, why don't we go ahead and jump in to our news and updates for the week. We wanted to start off real quick with recognition for our store Showdown event with the Star Wars Unlimited card game. We had the opportunity to host the store Showdown on Saturday. Mm-hmm. It was a great event. I think we had a total of 12 people participate. Mm-hmm. And we had one of our local players, our in-store players, Dustin Cole, took down the win with a little bit off the wall deck, but it was a good play. He did really well against the matchups and came out on top of that tournament, leaving with all the cool promo cards. So he's pretty jazzed about it.
Yeah,
and it was great.
He was very jazzed. By the way, how the hell did you do?
I did poorly.
Did I remember that your son beat you?
My son did beat me. I was pretty proud. He actually played really well.
He did. He came in the top 8?
He did. He came in 7th, I think.
Yeah.
And he would have come in the top 4, but he got distracted in his 3rd round game and made a mistake, and the other guy won the game. But the guy he was playing against said if he had been paying attention, Luke would have beaten him and taken the match.
You should be proud of him. He did exceptionally well.
No, it's a very big accomplishment. I mean, he's 8 years old and he really thinks through what he's doing. I built the deck for him, but he plays it really well. He thinks about what he's doing and what he's trying to do. And if he can avoid the 8-year-old pitfall of being distracted by people around him, he plays and focuses. So he did get paired with me in the 4th round, and he had the match advantage between the 2 decks, and he executed really well and won. So it was really good.
Yeah, I'm glad he did. It builds up confidence in him, that's for sure.
It does. And in both of the games, I mean, he loves playing Lorcana. He's really excited about Star Wars right now, though, having had a lot of fun and success in that tournament. So, well, let's look over at some of the news things, John. We've got Lorcana is first on the list, but I'm going to skip over it for a second because it has a lot to cover. And I thought maybe we could talk quickly more about Star Wars and Magic, and then we'll come back to Star Wars.
Sure. Come back to Lorcana, you mean?
I'm sorry, come back to Lorcana. Yes, sir.
See, I am paying attention.
That's good. At least one of us is.
That's for sure.
All right. So with Star Wars this week, there's been some really cool new announcements. They've got more spoilers coming out. The set is coming out July 12th. There should be pre-release the week before, which would be July 5th. July is a really tough month for me and for you. It seems like with the store and releases, there's a lot of stuff kind of layering on each other. There's supposed to be a big tournament for Lorcana that month. There's 2 events for Star Wars. Okay. Multiple things are happening on the weekend of July 4th, which is probably just not good for business anyway.
No, it's not. I don't know. These companies, I know they operate on a schedule, but they don't take into account, 4th of July weekend. July, people are out of school. They're going on vacation with their families. The attendance is not going to be good. I can always foresee that because it happens every year like that.
Yeah. The Star Wars event, I mean, their company is French, so I get that they may not pay as much attention, but FFG is not French. Like, FFG is in Minnesota. So putting out a release schedule that has pre-release tournaments on the weekend of 4th of July, I think is poor planning, but I think a lot of stuff about these new releases has been poor planning.
What'd you say? What company's French?
Asmodee.
They're French?
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I never knew that.
Well, speaking of Asmodee, they've had a bunch of problems in the last month and a half. Apparently, Asmodee owns FFG, and Asmodee is distributing Star Wars Unlimited.
And I found out Asmodee also owns GameGenix.
Yes.
Which is interesting.
Which is also European-based. But they've had to cancel their own direct pre-orders for Shadows of the Galaxy, which is the new set for Star Wars, which I think is just ridiculous. You and I started talking about this a little bit, but wanted to reserve that for the podcast. What do you think about the not the distributor, but the manufacturer of the card game having to put themselves on restriction because they oversold their pre-orders.
I think it's an atrocity. I mean, people. I don't know. I don't think these companies realize how much players actually pay attention to what's going on. And you know, you're on the message boards more often than I am, and you see the complaints, and that really lends to people saying, "Hey, is this company credible? What the hell are they doing? You know, why are they making these kind of mistakes? They're a reputable company, but they're making rookie mistakes, and that was a rookie mistake."
Well, there was a big discussion about it on the Team Covenant YouTube channel and their weekly podcast, and they had orders, personal orders. They're not selling Star Wars at their store. And so they had some personal orders that they had put in through the Asmodee and FFG websites when it had gone live, and they had their stuff canceled. And they were really frustrated by the fact that the manufacturer of the game is saying that they don't have enough of the product to fulfill the orders. Like, what are they missing? Inventory management on their website?
No, what happened? I spoke to my sales rep this morning, and I asked him about our allocations about Star Wars, and he explained it pretty well. He said, "Look, the first three sets, they go to the printer, and they said we need this much, okay, over the first three sets. However, they didn't anticipate, I guess, the demand for at least the first set. But they can't go to the printer and say, "Hey, look, you know, we're outsold what we thought, so we want to double our order." It's not going to happen because a printer has, you know, their own capacity to worry about, and they're printing other people's games. So the first three sets are kind of screwed up as far as inventory is concerned. But Asmodee, as a prime distributor, is always going to take care of their customers first. They're going to get the bigger allocations from what my sales rep from Southern Hobby told me this morning. And he said, yes, the next set of Star Wars is heavily allocated, as I saw on my pre-order sheet. And he said, that's not to preclude afterwards that you're going to be getting more. He said, you might get a case, you may get two. He said, it's probably going to come out in 3 waves, but there's no guarantee yet. And I asked, how the hell does the allocations actually work? He said, well, number one, it depends how many we're getting from the manufacturer. That's number one. And then if you participate in all the OP programs, not only with Star Wars, but all the OP programs that Southern Hobby participates in, that's number 2. And number 3 is your ranking as far as how much you actually spend with our company on a yearly basis. And he said, naturally, if a company is going to spend $100,000 a month, they're going to get a bigger allocations. And that's really how it boils down to. I can't fault them for that.
Well, but the situation here isn't that Southern Hobby is putting you on limitation or allocation. The problem here is that Asmodee says Asmodee is the primary distributor. Southern Hobby is the secondary distributor in the United States. Asmodee put on their website that they're going to sell boxes at MSRP. They had thousands of people sign up to buy boxes from Asmodee. And then Asmodee was like, oops, we didn't give ourselves that much. That just doesn't make any sense.
They screwed up. They really did. They screwed up.
I mean, it makes it seem like, and one of the conclusions that they drew on the other podcast was that it seems like Asmodee just didn't mean to put it up at all. Like somebody accidentally hit publish on the website. Obviously, that person's probably fired now, but they sold a bunch of boxes. And the question is really like, their website doesn't like have a quantity max. Like, hey, we only kept 10,000 boxes for us, so don't sell more than that. And then they had to send out a bunch of emails telling everybody like, no, never mind.
They screwed it up.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question. On their website, were they selling GameGenic products also?
I didn't look at that.
The reason I'm asking is because Southern Hobby does not have anything about the new GameGenics line for the second Star Wars set yet, which kind of surprises me since it's only about 2 weeks out, 3 weeks out.
Well, it's 2 weeks from pre-release and 3 weeks from full set
Yeah,
release.
so they don't have any information yet. They may go up today. I don't know, but they,
Well,
as of this morning, they didn't have any information.
well, you and I've talked about the Asmodee thing too. I mean, not Asmodee, the GameGenic thing. The product that they put out, particularly the token product that they produced, is something that's been very popular.
Hmm.
There's a lot of cool accessories and boxes and things that they produced as well. And for you to have limitations on that, on what is usually the highest margin product, the accessories, is just a real frustrating thing for a local store. And then to have the GameGenic products available on the internet after you've run out of supply and they say you can't get any more
Yeah.
was a little bit ridiculous.
Oh, it pisses me off, but
They don't care if you're pissed
no,
off.
they don't care. I mean, it's just a money game. A lot of companies do this, though. Unfortunately.
Well, let's talk about whether this maybe is representative of another problem. There was another line of news from an Asmodee subsidiary this week. They announced on Thursday that they are canceling production and development of X-Wing and Armada, the two Star Wars miniatures games that came with the pre-painted miniatures. I think everybody knew that that was a tough product to produce, but they've held it for a number of years. I mean, it's been, did they get to 10 years on X-Wing?
Did they give a reason why they're abandoning it?
It cost too much to produce. They said that they can't afford to continue to produce and have like putting out painted miniature product, and they are going to stop the production because it wasn't profitable.
Well, that's the key. It's not profitable. That's the whole thing in a nutshell.
Well, and I think that speaks a lot to the management that's going on inside of the company, though. Like, there was news that I saw today that Warhammer Game Workshop,
Mm-hmm.
they produce Warhammer, not a game that we talk about on here very much, and not a game that you carry, but we've mentioned tangentially miniatures and people being interested in that. But Games Workshop had a news release yesterday that they have expanded their production factory in England to add a fourth like distribution building to their factory.
Wow.
Like they produce their own miniatures for Warhammer. They have their own factory, they produce the stuff, they ship the stuff, and now they've expanded that production facility to include a fourth warehouse and a dedicated shipping facility. And it feels to me like a game like that has been there for a long time, has a really strong IP, is making good management decisions and growing in a way that they're expanding their production. And what we're talking about is a company that continues to rely on third party production. And now, because of that, they can't afford to make a miniature game that was considered to be one of the top of the market.
That's interesting. I really don't get involved too much in that because that's not what we stock in the store. But I wouldn't be a bit surprised. I mean, and let's face it, Asmodee does not have a great stellar reputation anyway. They really don't because they've produced some games before and they've abandoned it, before. I think people are a little concerned about Star Wars Unlimited too.
Well, I was looking at some of the numbers. You and I have talked about all of these games that have come out recently and comparing them to like the sustainability of games like Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh and Magic. One of the things that's interesting is that I think, and I want to look at the stats on this even deeper, but I think that the like regional tournament numbers are fairly similar to other games that are existing. Like, they're getting a couple hundred people at some of these regional Star Wars tournaments. They got a couple thousand people to go to the first Lorcana tournament. Now they're down under 1,000, but they don't get 5,000 people to play in main events at the not Star Wars, the Magic Cons and the SCG Cons.
Yeah.
They have thousands of attendees, but they don't have thousands of people in the main event. And I think it's unfair to compare Lorcana and Star Wars to those games without acknowledging that the numbers for the tournament play are fairly similar. The difference is production. We can sell, you and I talked about this the other day, you can sell Magic all day.
Mm-hmm.
You can buy anything you want from Magic within certain limitations. The premium products, which we're about to talk about, are on limitation and allocation, but the generic play boosters, like for every set, I mean, that's basically just like buying paper at Walmart. You can go get as many copies as you want.
Well, they have so much of a bigger player base though. That's the key.
I don't know that they have a massively more player base. There's huge demand for both of the new games. But like you said, the explanation that they had to pre-allocate the first three sets for like this product makes a lot of sense. And it makes a lot of sense what we've seen with Lorcana. The first three sets were a struggle to get product. The fourth set, there's so much product now that people are drowning in it.
That's the problem too, and I spoke with my sales rep about that also.
Well, it creates a false sense of demand, I think, to have the limitation of what's available for the first three sets. And it makes it really hard for a store owner, particularly one without experience, to be able to decide how much to buy of a fourth set. And like you have a really good relationship with your seller at Southern Hobby, but you have to make the choice and you're accountable for you about how much you buy.
Right.
But Southern Hobby's interest is in pushing the product.
Right.
So they're going to tell, like, John Smith, who just started a store 6 months ago, hey, great news. We've got lots of set 4 Lorcana. Why don't you buy it?
Well, you as a store owner, like you said before, you have to be responsible for making that decision. And that's where you have to do your homework. And you get on some of the sites and you look at some of the social media posts about it. I've always gotten on eBay and see what is selling and what's like from the bigger sellers. You know who the bigger sellers are on eBay. They've sold or pre-sold 1,000 boxes of this, and you wonder how the hell they got so many of it. But you have to look and see what they sold it for. If they sell it for, a certain number and you're paying a certain number, then you have to equate. We did this the other day. If I sold the Lorcana for what they're selling it for online right now, I would lose a couple of dollars per box with shipping included. I'm not going to do that. But I also told my sales rep this morning, I said, Jake, I said, when the next set comes out, I'm going to be very cautious with what I take in. I can always get more. I may have to pay more to get it, but I can always get more. But I'm not over ordering. And he said, no, I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, it's good to have a sales rep that respects that. Well, why don't we talk real quick about Magic, and then we can jump back over to the Lorcana news, and then we can move on to today's topic. What do you think?
What do you want to talk about Magic? Magic continues to go crazy.
Well, just news for Magic. There's a couple of things. Modern Horizon 3 continues to be a pretty high demand product. You can't get any more of the collector's commander decks.
Right.
But you have collector's boosters in stock now again.
I do, and I have a back order for 3 more boxes. There's going to be another wave of collector boosters coming in.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I just found that out this morning.
Well, and people still want that. I mean, I think we've got a lot of players in the store that wanted it. I think you said it sold out on pre-release weekend, and then this last week you got some more in, and it's going out the door pretty quick.
It is. Plus, I, as a store owner, I opened up a couple of packs. I think maybe 6 or 7 packs of the collectors. And I got some good cards in there that I put into the display case, and I've already sold a couple at a fairly decent, number, because the value of the card is still high online, which is really good. Which is good.
Well, I think that's part of what you want too as a store owner. You need a product that you could open some early and maintain value and be able to recoup costs. That lets you have the supply available for people that want it. Other things coming up. The next what did they call it?
Off the wall.
Uses Beyond Magic product is going to be Assassin's Creed.
Assassin's Creed.
It's coming out July 4th weekend because that's rational.
I forgot what they're coming out with. I think it's just collector packs and decks.
I think so.
If I can remember right.
Yeah, I don't think it's packs. I think it's collectors packs.
They did the same thing with Fallout.
Yeah.
I haven't really paid much attention to it, but I got to set up the pre-release for it. It's not a big deal. It's just getting online and doing it, and that's part of my everyday, when I'm not in the store, activities, which we'll talk about later.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a minute. And then at the end of July, you've got the next normal Magic set coming out. I mean, I guess we're going to have to come up with like a tracks name for how we track these things. There's the modern and commander products that are coming out. Then there's the Universes Beyond products, and then there's the standard Magic track, which is the standard legal sets that get released quarterly.
They're supposed to, because there was complaints last year. I think they came out with 36 new products, and Magic had said, we're going to cut back, but these products have, for this year at least, have been in the pipeline already. So we'll see next year if it's going to cut back a little bit, because, again, there's just too much to keep track of. And as a store owner, you got to have the resources to take it in, sell it, and you can't afford to stock it up on the shelf if it's not going to sell.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the bottom line is you have to know what's going to be able to sell and know how much of what you need to take in. And it makes it hard as a store owner to have the Modern Horizons 3 release and then have the Assassin's Creed release with 3 weeks later, and then the Bloomberg release 3 weeks after that.
And it makes it difficult for the player too, because getting back to player availability of money, there's only so much money that a person can have to spend, and if they're going to spend all of it on Modern Horizons 3, they're not going to have the money 3 weeks from now to put toward Assassin's Creed and so forth and so on. I mean, there's always going to be somebody that has deeper pockets, but the mass majority doesn't.
Well, I mean, you only run one draft on a Friday night.
Right.
And people that are playing in that are going to get what's being offered in it. And if it's Modern Horizons for the month of June, then it's Assassin's Creed for the month of July, and then it's Bloomberg for the month of August, like they're going to get what they get. But it's the people that have the extra disposable income that are like, hey, I'm going to get boxes of this. I'm trying to collect this. I'm trying to resell this. Like they're getting hit instead of like once a quarter where they need to have $500, they're getting hit like every 2 or 3 weeks.
That's exactly it. And it's I could see it's taking its toll on some people when they come into the store. I really can't. I want to buy a box, but I can't afford a box. I'll buy 2 or 3 packs. So again, that's how you have to determine. You have to have a gut feeling of what you need to carry in inventory.
Well, but there's not a lot of complaining from the store when people want to buy individual packs instead of boxes.
No, that's true.
As long as the packs eventually sell out.
You make more money too by selling them individually.
Yeah. Well, let's talk real quick on our Lorcana news. Set 5 has been announced. Super excited for that. It's called Shimmering Skies.
Right.
It sounds like a Pokemon set.
I know.
But it's coming out August 9th, which explains why they told us we had to run the store championship in July.
Did they push it up?
Yeah.
Why?
It was the end of August last time they released a set. Now it's the beginning of August. I think it has to do with Gen Con.
Okay.
Last time they released at the end of August, Gen Con was the first week of August.
Right.
And there was 3 weeks where people were kind of annoyed that people had gotten product at Gen Con, but it wasn't coming out to the hobby shops.
Right.
So now it's going to be Gen Con August 2nd, set release August 9th. They did, one of the things that I've put in here to discuss as news for Pixelborn, for Lorcana, is they did announce the events for Gen Con, and they did not specify anything as like a pre-release on the list of events that I've seen. So I don't know. I mean, I'm sure they're selling Shimmering Skies at Gen Con a week early, but they're doing booster draft, sealed. I bet all of those are going to run Shimmering Skies and not old product. And then core constructed and multiplayer core constructed. The rule set says that those core constructed isn't going to use the new cards until it's been out for 3 weeks. So,
I still think they're coming out with too much stuff too quickly too. Set 4, they came out with a lot of stuff, and it's moving, but it's not moving as fast. The interest is not there as much as it was for when the first set came out. We definitely have lost people. There's no two ways about it. And I think, people have lost interest because of non-availability of product at the beginning, and it's just too much competition for their money other places.
Well, I think one of the things that I was thinking about with Lorcana is that the informality of League Week doesn't really get people to commit to always be there.
That's true.
And so it's hard to measure what we have in terms of who's there. Like, we have a group of probably 8 people that is the core of our Lorcana group. And those people pretty standard come unless something's going on. I take 4 of them away when I go out on town.
However, the first week that the product came out, the 4th set, Ursula's Revenge, we had like 18 or 19 people sign up for the league. And that's diminished over the time. I don't know if it's people, because of the time of the year too, vacation times and so forth and so on, or people are just losing interest in the game, or they want to not play just casually, they want to play more competitively.
Well, there's 2 kinds of though there's two ways that cuts. There's people that want to play more competitive, and we're not running a tournament. And then there's also people that don't want to play at all and are just trying to buy product from you. And so those people are coming in, and they may sign up for the league not really understanding what they're doing, and then they just don't show up ever.
Yeah, well, they don't want the promo then,
And they don't get the promos. But I don't know what goes into all those different decisions, but I think it's hard to measure with that particular game, because the way we run our league is a casual play league, and so it really lends itself to coming and going, and mostly to going. I mean, people don't show up. So
yeah, well, we don't have the big player base that some of the other stores do, and that puts smaller stores at a disadvantage because you don't know whether you want to do casual league play or competitive tournament, or as you mentioned the other day, have it for younger people, maybe a 12 or under group or something like that. And I'm not sure how that would work. And I'm not sure if it would work now because it's summertime, kids are out of school. They're on vacation. They're at camp or whatever.
well, it cuts both ways, right? Summertime parents might be more willing to let their kids spend 7 hours in the store to play in a tournament.
If they're in town,
If they're down, but if they're in school and they're in town, their parents might not want them to be at the shop for 7 hours
that's
on a
true.
Saturday.
That's
So,
true.
I mean, I think that's just how life works, though. Like, it cuts all the time,
But
whether you're going
as
to
a
be here or not.
store owner, you really have to take that into account. You have to look back at precedents, what's happened years before with different products. Again, it all dependent upon you as a store owner to really look and be self-aware of what's going on around you and making decisions about from gut feeling sometimes.
Well, to be fair, though, you've got to make a lot of gut feeling decisions on these two games right now, because the last time that a new card game came out and actually lasted was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got Magic, Lorcana, no, I'm sorry, Magic, Pokemon, and Yu-Gi-Oh!
Right.
Those are the last three games that got released that have more than a decade of durability.
Right.
Everything else has gone away.
Mm-hmm.
You know, games that we thought were going to last that came out before Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! Those games are gone. Games that have hit the market with lots of hype never lasted more than 3 years. Multiple different Star Wars lines have been put out that have all fallen apart and disappeared. I mean, it's a strong IP, but it's not durable and it's not staying for any number of reasons. And so for you, it's not really making a decision based on what you've seen before, because if you're going to make those decisions, your decision is, I'm not going to put a lot of time and effort into this because it's not going to last more than a year and a half.
Yeah. Again, you have to make that decision on the fly and you don't overbuy.
That's right.
You just don't overbuy.
Well, and I think you emphasize that. You're going to buy what you know that you can sell, and if you need to get more, you can, and it might change how the pricing works for it, but that's how that
Who
is.
cares? It's better to be able to sell it than have it sit up on the shelf because how I equate it is product on a shelf, look at it as money. And you're not taking that dollar and that dollar that's sitting on the shelf and making $1.50 or $2 out of it. It's sitting there collecting dust.
Well, when Walmart starts taking Magic cards as payment, you're going to be able to eat like a king.
It's just true.
All right, let's talk about the last piece of Lorcana news. I don't know if I told you this, but Disney has gone at Pavel again, the guy that made Pixelborn.
You mentioned it the other day, but go ahead.
So I thought I'd throw that out there in our news today. Pavel had announced, after cooperating with the takedown of Pixelborn, which, rest its soul, is over today. It's gone. There's no more Pixelborn. He had said that he was going to take the core programming for the Pixelborn matchmaking, and he was going to use it to create a ranked ladder for web-based play of the game. So I'd have to have my own cards at my house. You'd have to have your own cards at your house. We would use Pavel's new program that he had called Pixelborn Connect, which was supposed to just connect people together for ranked webcam play. He didn't have any product to put into it. He didn't have images of the cards to put into it. It was just going to be my name gets matched up with your name, and then the computer program would hook up my webcam to your webcam, and we could both play games on the table. And then at the end of it, we report the results of the game, and then the computer kept a ranking, like a ladder. Disney says no to that too. Apparently, they own the rights to the idea of playing Pixelborn, Lorcana now. So, while last week I was willing to defend Disney's IP position a little bit because it made a lot of sense to me under U.S. trademark law, this doesn't make any sense to me. This is absolutely insane. I don't know how Disney thinks that they can tell third parties how they get to connect with each other to play a game they produced.
That is interesting. But he's not going to be able to fight it. He can't.
He's already announced he's not going to. He's like, all right, fine, I'm not going to do that either.
That's unfortunate because it hurts the player base.
Well, if you want to have a community, you stop attacking the community. I mean, if Magic wanted to, Magic could go all over YouTube and tear all kinds of videos down, probably, because, well, except for the people they give the images to, but Magic releases images of their product out to content creators to put on the internet, and then there's a bunch of people that play Magic on the internet. People are trying to play Lorcana on the internet. The internet is this new economic engine where we can put out pictures and video of stuff, and it makes interest to go up. It exposes the game to new people, and they're just cutting that off at its knees over and over again. I just don't get it.
Maybe Disney just doesn't like people anymore. It gives me a different thought on Disney now, as far as the way they're handling this.
It's not a space that Disney's in anything else. I mean, they have video games and things like that, and they like to sell those, but this just doesn't make any sense.
There's got to be something bigger at play. I'm sure down the line you'll find something else that's going to come out that'll make sense to their reasoning. We don't know now. We're speculating.
I like to speculate on this stuff because it doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't make any sense.
What is publicly available right now is that somebody was going to make a mechanism for two people to hook up on the internet. Okay, that came out wrong. But
that's fine.
Apparently Disney thinks they get to control how people that own Lorcana cards interact with each other using the internet. And that doesn't make sense.
If they went to court, if Pavel had the money and they went to court, Disney wouldn't win, probably.
I can't say that because I don't understand fully why they think they have intellectual property rights to two people putting up their own independent videos.
There is none.
But it seems like a big stretch to me, and I just think it's ridiculous. Anyway, that's enough news. We've talked about a lot of news today. Why don't we jump over and talk about what we had intended for our main topic today? You had the idea that we could talk about what happens behind the scenes of the shop. Like, not how do you manage inventory and not how do you do the foundations that make the business run, but maybe a little bit of that. But really, like, what goes on when the store is closed?
Okay. And the reason I thought about that, people would come to me and say, well, you're only open up 4 days a week. I said, yeah, but I'm here usually 6 to 7 days a week. I'm always doing something in the store for the store. And they kind of looked at me quizzically and they said, what are you talking about? I said, somebody has to clean. Somebody has to put stock away. Somebody has to do this. Somebody has to do that. Somebody has to go to the bank and so forth and so on. So I figured, let me talk about my typical day. Like, for instance, today, Monday. This is what I have to do, in addition to waiting for you to show up this morning. So I got here around 10, a little after 10. And first thing I did was contact my sales rep. And he was at a meeting. As soon as his meeting was over, we talked about different things and we talked about what I needed for the following, for this week. Because I wanted to make sure it got shipped out today, because it's a 2-day ship from either St. Louis or from Memphis. So I want to make sure it gets here on Wednesday. If it doesn't go out today, it'll go out tomorrow, but it'll get here on Thursday. And that's with good weather. So I always try to place my orders on Monday. So that's number one. That's what I had to do. And before I called him, or he called me back, I looked at the shelves and I said, well, I need this, this, and this, and so forth and so on. And I was able to put a couple things online to do my automatic ordering before he called me back. And then some of the things on the online ordering is kind of screwed up, so it's easier if I talk to him and he could find what I needed, especially like supplies and things like that. So then my typical day, for instance, if you weren't here today, my next step would be to work on the info blast, my newsletter. because I try to get it out on Monday at a reasonable time, and that means I have to get into scheduling my Magic events because they have an individual code. So that takes a little time to do that. Get all the codes for the events I'm going to run for the week. And then I'll sit there and say, all right, what else do I want to talk about? What new product is coming in? For instance, the new Yu-Gi-Oh is going to be coming in. They're shipping it out today. I'll have it on Wednesday. And as an OTS store, organized tournament store, I could start selling product on Wednesday. So that's going to go in a newsletter. Also, I'm setting up an event on Top Deck for the next Star Wars we're going to do next Saturday. Because I told the guys, I said, look, I've got a box left. I don't want to sell it online. I know I can make more money online about it. But let's have another tournament. And I'm going to give a judge promo as the main prize if I have at least 10 people. And they all sounded ecstatic about it. It was good. Let me backtrack a little bit. One of the guys that came in yesterday just to casually play Star Wars said that another store in the area had promised one of those what they showcase they called Star
Yeah, the
Wars,
fancy ones.
the fancy ones. They had promised they were going to give those out. However, not enough people showed up, so they decided arbitrarily not to give out that showcase, and they didn't announce it in advance, and a lot of people were pissed off about it. you know, I told the guys in advance, hey, I'll give out this card, but I have to have at least 10. So it's out there and it's going to go out in the newsletter today. All right, so that takes time to do the newsletter. And then I used to do my banking every week. But especially during COVID, I didn't do it every week. It was just a pain in the neck because you had to go into the bank. They took a lot of things down, and it just became a hassle. Plus, a lot of people don't pay in cash anymore. Everything's credit card or debit card. So the cash that I need to deposit on a weekly basis didn't make any sense to go to the bank to do it. So now I go maybe every 3 weeks, every 4 weeks, and make one big deposit for cash. But that's still something that I have to do. And then if I have time left at the end of the day, before I leave the store to go to the bank, I'll take a look and say, well, I need a case of water. I need a case of Snapple. I need whatever the hell it is I need for snacks. And then I'll go to either Costco or Sam's Club. If I don't go to Costco today, I'll go to Sam's Clubs today. Club today, and vice versa. I'll go to Costco or Sam's Club tomorrow on another one of my off days, and I'll look around the store, and then I'll say, well, I got to clean this, I got to straighten up this within my limitations. I have people that come in on a Friday, and they'll take out the garbage for me. They'll take out the cardboard for me. Uh, I wouldn't. That helps a lot. But I'm responsible. I'll clean within my limitations. I'll go to clean the dust off the shelves. I'll organize the products, make sure that they look good. I'll get into the database, and if I have time, I still got a couple thousands of cards in the back room that I still need to put into the database. And, I may pull out a couple hundred cards and put them into the database, but you have to sort them, you have to alphabetize them, then you have to put them into the database itself, and then you have to put them into the boxes that are behind the counter in alphabetical order. So when somebody comes in and places an order, you go to that box and you pick out that particular card. And it all takes time, and it takes a lot of time to do that. So that's pretty much what I do on my off days. And there's a lot of other little things that I do.
Yeah, we talked about one other thing that you said. You have to keep kind of abreast of what's going on in the gaming community, particularly the local scene. And so you spend
Right.
some time on Facebook and other social media too. Is that right?
Yeah, I snoop. I snoop and I look to see what other stores are doing. And I listen to my customers. That's how I found out about that other store not giving out that showcase card. And you got to be aware what the competition's doing. And you don't need to compete with the competition, but at least you have to be knowledgeable what they're doing and what people like and what they don't like, because you have to read the comments. And I've gotten attuned to that, reading some of the comments. I'm not that proficient in social media. I could care less about it. But, when I get in there, I read what I need to read, and I do listen to the customers when they come into the store, which is important. You have to do that.
Well, I guess one question that comes to my mind as we're talking about what do you do when the store's closed, you said that you're open 4 days a week,
Mhm.
but that you're usually here 6 days a week.
At least six, a lot of times 7 days.
I mean, why not be open? You've paid rent for all those extra days. Does it really hurt you to be open those times?
No, because then you're obligated to stay. That's number one. And I was open 7 days a week at one time when I first opened up for business. And a lot of days I would make a couple of dollars, and it wasn't worth me being committed to staying here because I do have to have time to do other things, other personal things that I do, or things that are related to the store. A lot of times I'll be here, I'll have one set of lights on, and somebody will knock on the door. And if I know the person, I'll get up and say, I'm closed today. Yeah, I forgot. What do you need? Well, I want to buy a couple of these. All right, come on in. They'll come in and they'll buy their thing. A lot of them don't read the newsletter to say, hey, you're only closed up on these days. I'm sorry. That's all right. If I'm here, I'm here. And I'll get some business, but I don't want to commit to it. I'm too damn old. If I was younger, that's a different story.
Well, I think one of the answers to that question is that your time has value, right? Just because you have the sunk cost of paying the rent and the utilities doesn't mean that you have to have the store open. And you don't have staff. You're not paying anybody to work for you. There's nobody that's coming in here and manning the counter when you're not here. You're the person that's here the 4 days that you're open.
Right.
And if you were open 6 days or 5 days or 7 days, you'd be the guy behind the counter. And what that means is that John doesn't get to go to his medical appointment, go
Food
see his
shopping.
family, go buy your own food,
Right.
go shop for your own house, get furniture, do maintenance in your own car,
Mm-hmm.
all the things that you do when you're not inside of the store. And I think that's a balance thing that you have to do as a store owner and as somebody running a small business is that you have things that you need to do that are not in this room.
There's a trade-off, and you just alluded to, you can have a staff, but then again, you put a staff in, you have to pay the staff to stay open 7 days a week or whatever, 6 days a week. Is paying for the staff sitting around all day long going to equate to more sales? Probably not. And it's funny because I see that at a lot of the other, like the way or stuff like that. You got, well, the store I go to, they have two primary owners, and they're there pretty much a good part of the time. And when they have their staff in there, a lot of times the staff just sits around on their phone and they don't do a damn thing. The owners themselves, when they come in, they're sweeping, they're dusting, they're wiping them down, stainless steel and all that stuff. And I said to the owner one day, I said, why the hell you have him sitting on his ass, letting him be on the phone? He said, it's easier for me to do it. And I looked at him, I said, I'm going to have to train him. He said, doesn't matter. He said, if I'm not here, they're not going to do it.
I mean, it's hard to find good help.
Without a doubt.
I mean, particularly in the value range that you're talking about paying, like somebody to work part-time at a store like this, I mean, you can't afford to pay them $40 an hour. I mean, they're not going to get a full-time living off of this.
Dumb shit.
Why are you calling me names
No,
again?
not you, but dumb shit.
You know who we're talking about.
Yeah, that's Dustin.
Video.
I don't care.
You said you were going to stop that.
I would stop. Well, what the hell with it? He used to work for me part-time whenever I needed him. And he would, he was he would sort cards. And I remember him saying one time, because he would look at the cards and, just keep looking for his own needs. And I said to him, come on, you have to hurry up. He says, you're paying me by the hour. That was it.
Yeah.
That was it. I went off on him a little bit, but yeah.
Well, I think that's the hard thing about employees and about running a small business. And I think it's part of the value of considering what this podcast might give to somebody that's trying to do the same thing is that there are a lot of costs to having an employee. I think there's also value in leveraging having an employee. Like if you can get employees that'll do the minimum expectation, like keep the room open, take sales, Like that can be valuable, but there's always stuff that you're going to be able to do better and that you're going to be able to do more efficiently, no matter how much you train.
Well, you have a vested interest in your business.
Right.
That's the difference. They don't.
Right, because they take their paycheck whether they sold $1,000 worth of cards that
Right.
day or 100.
Yeah, you got to make things work. You know, it's your business, and the ethic, the ethical thing about your business is your responsibility. And a lot of times you don't get it in staff. They could care less. Just go to some of these big, like Walmarts and stuff. They could care less.
Well, one of the other things to talk about and to think about is that a lot of the stuff you can't do while the store's open.
Right.
Like you could run the vacuum and wipe the tables down while people are in the room. Everybody kind of look at you and be like, John, what the heck? You're bothering us. That would be fine. But like you actually can't manage your inventory effectively while there's people bumming around the shop doing stuff.
Well, I'll give you another, for instance. Last Monday, after you left, the cleaning guy came in to do the carpets. So they spent an hour and a half, cleaning the carpet and getting all the stains out and everything like that. And then they had to set up a dehumidifier to make sure that it dried properly. And it took 2 days. And they came in on Wednesday morning and grabbed the dehumidifier out, and the carpet was finally dried. But I couldn't have that if I was open. I'd have to close the store that day. So yeah, you're right. There's other things that are absolutely musts. Even putting cards in inventory. If I start putting cards in inventory behind the desk, invariably somebody will come up to the counter and I'll lose my concentration. And I'll say, oh, shoot, did I put that into the database already? Then I'll have to go back and recount it. It's so much easier when nobody's in the store or nobody knocking at the door bothering me.
Yeah. Well, are there any other thoughts on what you do when the store's closed that you think could help people understand how the big picture of how the store functions?
Yeah, that's good for today. I might have something next week. Add to it. I don't know. We'll see.
All right. Well, let's jump over and talk about our 3 E's before we wrap it up for the week. Again, everybody, we like to provide you with 3 E's worth of value for our podcast. We like to educate, enlighten, and entertain you. And while we think that for the last several minutes we've been entertaining and moderately educational and maybe enlightening about the card game business, we also like to remind us all that we have a life outside of the game store. And there are facts and fun tidbits from life that could be brought into this to provide education, enlightenment, and entertainment. And for that, primarily, we rely on John's various sources of information. He keeps his ear to the ground, and he hears things, and he sees things, and sometimes he finds his answers inside of his bottle caps.
You got it. That's exactly it. I didn't realize that my parents wasted all this money sending me to college when I can learn a hell of a lot more just looking at a Snapple bottle cap.
Have you had a Snapple this week, John?
I've had a few of them.
And did we learn anything?
I did. One of the Snapple caps said, what do you call a flock of crows? And I'm sure, without looking at the notes, a lot of people don't know this. A group of crows is called a murder.
Do you know what you call 2 crows? An attempted murder.
Bad. All right. There are several different explanations for the origin of this term, primarily based on old folk tales and superstitions. For instance, there is a folk tale that crows will gather and decide the capital fate of another crow. That I looked online for, because that's not going to fit under a Snapple cap.
I was going to say, you had a really big bottle of Snapple.
Yeah, that didn't work. I had to do additional, but it's information. I never knew that before. And it's information because I read a lot now. I read more than I've ever read in my life. And it's helped me keep my brain pretty sharp, I guess. And it gives me information. And I always like to learn more things. All right, then my next Snapple cap, bottle cap, it says, how fast can a dragonfly fly? And the Snapple cap said 30 miles per hour is the fastest. However, what I read online, they are the strongest flyers in the insect world. Compared to most insects, dragonflies can fly further and higher than other insects. Their maximum flight speeds are 22 to 34 miles per hour,
Wow.
Which contradicts the Snapple cap. But that's pretty damn. And they average around 10 miles per hour, which is That's pretty damn fast. That's quicker than I'm moving.
I mean, you really got to scare the pants off a dragonfly to get it to go 36 miles an hour.
I know. Did you ever see the dragonflies? They're
I mean, I've seen big ones. Usually they're ominously hovering though around the yard, and
all the iridescent colors on them. They're kind of neat.
They're pretty cool.
Yeah, they're kind of neat. All right. Let me see. The next thing I want to talk about, managing the messages. Because of new efforts to crack down on spam calls, a person wrote, I'm getting a lot of spam texts. I want it to stop. How do I stop them? So the response was, some of these spams are trying to figure out whether the phone number is in use. So if you get a spam text, don't respond, don't click on the links, and block the number immediately. They encourage people not to give out their phone numbers or contact information unless it's absolutely necessary. Yeah, have you noticed you've gotten a lot of more spam texts lately?
Yeah. I mean, there have been several changes in American data privacy laws that have affected that, and it's been a real pain.
Let me see. I got another thing, but I'll wait till next week. I think we spent enough time today. What do you think?
All right, if that's what you want.
Yeah, that's good.
Before we close it out, do you want to have any closing thoughts before we do our closing series of information?
Closing thoughts about what?
About anything. I need you to fill a couple seconds while I...
Want me to fill a couple of seconds? You have to learn how to become better than your son at playing Star Wars if you're going to play next week.
I didn't realize we were going to devolve into picking on me again.
Oh, we are. I told you I was going to hammer you about it.
Yeah.
The expression on that kid's face was priceless.
He did really well. I told you, he should have beat that other guy too.
Yeah, I love seeing it. I love seeing it.
All right, well, let's talk about closing out the podcast. Before we close down the podcast, we do want to take a moment to thank our patrons. Specifically, we have Brandon, Logan, and Benjamin. Brandon, Grant, and Benjamin are our paid patrons. And then Logan is joined on for free updates on Patreon, which are limited. We've tried to put some cool things up on the Patreon recently. We've had behind-the-scenes video. I think we're going to do better about show notes because we actually made good show notes this time. We might share those and see what people think about that. But the primary benefits right now for our Patreon are acknowledgement of our gratitude on our podcast and also access to an unedited behind-the-scenes video that shows how we make the podcast and what goes on during our recording session. In addition to that, we are trying to do better at using the various social media platforms. We have Instagram and X, where you can find us at Card Shop Insiders. You also have iTunes and YouTube and Spotify, where you can find our podcast content. We also have some short-form video content that we've started to edit out of past episodes and put on Instagram and YouTube. And we're catching up the YouTube library so that it'll have all the podcast episodes in the near future. If you do want to interact with the show or have questions about things related to the store or stuff that you would like to see covered in future episodes, please head over to YouTube and share a comment on our latest video, or join the Patreon where you can message directly with John and I and get answers maybe outside of the podcast. Maybe somebody will ask us a question outside of the podcast. Finally, we do enjoy being able to put these episodes together for you, and we really look forward to being able to see you guys next week from behind the counter. So thank you again, and see you next week.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate you listening in. Good.
You got to stop it.
Stop it. All right. That little thing that